What if I told you that one day you might be able to jump 3 stories high? It sounds impossible, but scientists believe it could happen if Earth's gravity slowly weakened over the next 100 years. Imagine a world where buildings are made of clouds and water falls upwards towards the sky. Cars would float away if people didn't strap them down. And birds could soar for hours without flapping their wings, but this isn't some fantasy world. It could be our future if the very foundations of our civilization, the tectonic plates that make up our planet's crust, slowly drift apart over the next 100 years. As they move away from each other, Earth's gravity would weaken, allowing us to leap higher and higher. But eventually, the forces of nature that hold our world together would completely collapse, literally. The Earth would break into pieces and our solar system would be a little less gravitational pull. We've all felt it before, that unsettling lurch in your stomach when the ride at an amusement park reaches the top of its highest hill and slows to a momentary stop before plunging you back down to Earth. Now imagine if that feeling of weightlessness lasted just a little too long, or even better, what if it never ended? That terrifying prospect isn't as far-fetched as you might think. In fact, it was something of a commonplace occurrence in the early days of the Cold War. Picture this. The year is 1960. Two American Air Force colonels, John Paul Stapp and Joseph Kittinger, are preparing to take part in Project Excelsior, a series of high-altitude experiments designed to test the limits of human endurance. Stapp will later describe it as the loneliest and most frightening experience of my life. Wearing a pressure suit that looks more suited to a sci-fi movie than reality, Stapp is strapped into an aircraft and shot through the sky like a human cannonball. Reaching an altitude of over 100,000 feet, Stapp experiences almost 8 minutes of weightlessness as his capsule detaches from the rocket and begins to drift through the upper atmosphere. But what if that experience wasn't just a fleeting moment, but the start of something much more permanent? What if the Earth's gravity, which normally keeps us firmly planted to the ground, suddenly began to weaken? If that happened today, the consequences would be nothing short of catastrophic. Our bodies, evolved over millions of years under the constant pull of Earth's gravity, would begin to experience the sensation of falling, not just once, but forever. Buildings, bridges, and other structures not designed to withstand such a shift would collapse, causing widespread destruction. But it gets worse. The weakening gravity would continue pulling away at our planet's atmosphere, causing it to thin and recede. Without the protection it provides from harmful cosmic rays, Earth would become a radioactive wasteland, rendering the surface completely uninhabitable. Even worse, the Earth's orbit, tightly bound to the planet's gravity, would begin to shift, potentially sending our planet on a collision course with the sun or hurtling it into the depths of outer space. Humanity, once the dominant force on Earth, would be forced to flee into the stars, becoming a species of nomadic wanderers, forever searching for a new home. Okay, so maybe a sudden loss of gravity isn't all that it's cracked up to be. But the truth is, the scenario isn't as far-fetched as you might think. According to standard physics, Earth's gravity is determined by two things: our planet's mass and its radius. For gravity to weaken, one of 3 things would need to happen. Earth would have to lose a massive amount of mass, expand dramatically in size, or the fundamental gravitational constant itself would need to change. While the first 2 scenarios are highly unlikely, the third possibility has some theoretical backing. Some physicists propose that the strength of gravity could change over time, although such shifts would occur over vast stretches of time, far longer than the human lifespan. But what if these changes happen faster, much faster? While it's a concept that remains firmly in the realm of science fiction, the idea serves as a reminder of the fragility of our existence and the importance of cherishing every moment on our home planet. After all, it's not every day that we get to experience the luxury of negative G's. What if the ground beneath our feet suddenly became a lot less substantial? What if gravity, that force which has been our constant companion since the dawn of our existence, suddenly vanished? It's a question that has probably crossed the minds of many. But what would actually happen if gravity, the force that keeps us grounded on Earth, suddenly went away? Well, the changes wouldn't be immediately catastrophic. In fact, in the first few years, you might not even notice anything. You might find that your morning jog feels a bit easier, your jump shot in basketball gets a little higher. But as the decades passed, the effects would become impossible to ignore. Research from PMC and Frontiers in Physiology shows us what happens to the human body in reduced gravity environments based on studies of astronauts in space. The news isn't all good. As gravity weakens, the mechanical load on your bones and muscles decreases. Your heart doesn't need to work as hard to pump blood upward against gravity. Sounds great, right? Well, here's the catch: your body interprets this as a signal that it doesn't need to be as strong anymore. So it starts to shed muscle and bone mass. Those astronauts who once looked like they were made of iron would start to look more like they were made of straw. But there might be a silver lining to this dark cloud. We might grow slightly taller as our spines decompress, but we'd also become more fragile, more prone to osteoporosis, and ironically, more likely to injure ourselves despite the reduced gravitational force. Imagine walking on a beach, the sand shifting and swirling around you as you take each weightless step. Every movement would feel effortless, freeing, almost intoxicating. Running would feel like bounding, jumping, the jumping. What starts as a few extra inches would gradually become superhuman leaps. Michael Jordan would seem positively earthbound with his mere 48-centimeter vertical jump. In the new reality, players would soar through the air, effortlessly dunking from half court. The world of sports would need to completely reevaluate what's possible. Baseball players would hit home runs that put them out of the park and into orbit. Golfers would need to watch out for their balls going into outer space instead of into the hole. Every record in every sport would be shattered in the days, weeks, and months following the disappearance of gravity. But perhaps the most profound changes would be psychological. How would it feel to live in a world where every step makes you feel lighter, more free? Would we develop a new sense of human potential, or would we mourn the loss of the grounding force that literally kept us connected to Earth? Would we find joy in the newfound freedom of movement, or would we fear the instability of a world without gravity? The absence of gravity would undoubtedly bring about significant changes, both physically and psychologically. It would test the very limits of human adaptability, forcing us to redefine what it means to be human in a world that has changed beyond recognition. What if I told you we could build buildings twice as tall as the Burj Khalifa? It turns out that every structure on Earth is designed to handle the current level of gravity. But as gravity weakens, the weight loads on buildings decrease, making them over-engineered for their new environment. This means that in theory, we could build skyscrapers that are twice as tall as they are now, using materials that would collapse under normal gravity. We could build bridges that are so light and thin that they would look like they're floating, but there's a dark side to this. Some structures like suspension bridges and catenary arches rely on gravity for their stability. As gravity weakens, these structures might become too weak to stand up at all. And then there's the problem of foundations. All of the soil that holds up our buildings is going to shift and move in unpredictable ways, causing some buildings to collapse entirely. This is why the construction industry is facing a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. We have the opportunity to build anything we want, but we have to do it at a time when the laws of physics are changing. What if the Earth's gravity suddenly went from 9.8 meters per second squared to 6.6 meters per second squared? Our oceans would literally explode outward, covering vast new areas of land and radically reshaping coastal cities and countries. The moon's tidal forces would be weaker, leading to smaller tides and dramatically altering coastal ecosystems that have evolved over millions of years. Weather patterns would also be affected with altered atmospheric pressure and circulation, potentially creating new climate zones and making some regions of the Earth uninhabitable while others become habitable. And here's where it gets really scary. A weaker gravitational pull means that our atmosphere would expand and slowly leak into space. The lighter gases like hydrogen and helium would escape first, followed by nitrogen and oxygen. Over billions of years, we could lose the very air we breathe. Under these new conditions, birds and insects would find flight easier and could evolve larger wingspans. Land animals could grow much larger because gravity is one of the key factors limiting the maximum size of Earth-esque creatures. But evolution takes time. Many species wouldn't be able to adapt to the rapid change in gravity, potentially going extinct while others flourish. What if I told you we could make space travel easier and cheaper? If we could weaken gravity, rockets wouldn't need as much fuel to escape Earth's gravitational pull. Aircraft would require less lift to fly, meaning they could take off from shorter runways. Drones could carry more weight for longer distances. And the dream of personal flying vehicles might finally become a reality. But there's a catch: our satellites would become destabilized. Lower gravity would cause them to drift outward, and some might even escape Earth's influence entirely. We have to bring them back into stable orbits, or develop new technologies to replace them. This could be catastrophic. You see, almost everything we rely on in modern life depends on satellites, GPS, weather forecasting, communications networks. If they were to fail, we'd be in big trouble. So while the idea of weakening gravity sounds cool, it could have some serious drawbacks. We should proceed with caution. What if the Earth's gravitational pull suddenly got weaker? The implications would be staggering. Entire industries built around weight, shipping, construction, mining, they would all need to be completely rethought. The global economy would need to adapt to a world where the fundamental physics of commerce have changed. But perhaps the most immediate and dramatic impacts would be felt in the realm of sports. Imagine Olympic high jumpers clearing 20-foot bars or basketball players performing aerial maneuvers that would make Michael Jordan look earthbound. Every sport would need new rules, new records, new ways of thinking about human athletic achievement. Of course, this sudden shift wouldn't be felt equally. Wealthier countries with advanced technology would adjust more quickly, potentially creating new forms of global inequality. Some societies might even collapse into chaos as their citizens struggle to cope with a world that no longer makes sense. If the ground beneath your feet is no longer as solid as you thought it was, you might find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about the world, including who you are. After all, for all of human history, we've been creatures bound to the ground. What happens to our sense of self when we can literally leap tall buildings in a single bound? Would we become more adventurous, more optimistic about human potential? Or would we mourn the loss of the grounding force that kept us humble? As a species, we've always adapted to our environment, changing as needed to survive. But this hypothetical scenario poses a unique question. When the environment itself changes, when the very laws of nature are altered, what does that say about the adaptability of the human spirit? Would we rise to the challenge of a lighter world, or would we be crushed by its sudden, dramatic change? There's no right answer, which is why this question has remained one of the great what-ifs of science. What if I told you that in 100 years, Earth might not be able to support life as we know it? Gravity is actually getting weaker as the century progresses. And if it continues to do so at the current rate, Earth will lose much of its atmosphere over thousands or even millions of years. Without the atmosphere, Earth would become uninhabitable. But there's another more immediate danger. The moon would slowly drift away from Earth as our planet's gravitational pull weakens. Eventually, the moon's orbit would become unstable and it could escape Earth's gravitational pull entirely. And here's where things get really interesting. The moon plays a crucial role in stabilizing Earth's axial tilt. Without the moon, Earth's climate would become chaotic and unpredictable. Picture this: the planet that nurtured life for billions of years would become as barren as Mars, but perhaps humanity would find a way to adapt. Maybe we lions develop new technologies to artificially maintain our atmosphere or create enclosed cities that preserve Earth-like conditions. We might even learn to thrive in low-gravity environments and become a truly spacefaring species. The question isn't whether we'd survive, it's whether we'd still be recognizably human. What if gravity just disappeared one day? No more up or down, no more heavy or light, everything would be weightless. People would float away into the vastness of space. Let's pause and consider the deeper implications. Throughout human history, gravity has been the ultimate constant. It's shaped our language, our metaphors, our understanding of effort and achievement. We talk about heavy problems and light moods, about falling in love and rising to the occasion. What happens to human philosophy when that constant disappears? Would concepts of struggle and achievement shift as physical limitations change? Would we develop new religions around the experience of weightlessness, seeing it as a form of transcendence or liberation? Art and literature would explode with new themes. Imagine poetry written by people who can literally soar, or paintings created by artists who understand movement in ways we can't and currently comprehend. The entire human experience of embodiment would be transformed. Some might interpret the change as a sign of humanity's evolution towards something greater. Others might see it as a cosmic test or punishment. The philosophical implications would be as dramatic as the physical ones. What would happen if gravity slowly weakened over 100 years? I'll tell you what wouldn't happen. Humans would not evolve wings and fly away. That's not how evolution works. But what would happen is the most dramatic transformation in human history. We would literally be reimagining what it means to be human, to live on Earth, to be bound by physical laws. Every force, every constant, every law of nature is woven into the fabric of our existence. They define our limits, our capabilities, our very survival. Gravity is not just a physical phenomenon, it's a part of what makes us us. It's in the way we move through space, the way we build our homes, the way we relate to each other. While this scenario is almost certainly impossible, thinking through it helps us appreciate the incredible complexity and delicate balance of our world. So the next time you feel your feet firmly planted on the ground, take a moment to appreciate the invisible force that keeps you there. Because in a universe where gravity could theoretically weaken, where the very foundations of reality could shift, the simple act of standing upright is actually a cosmic miracle.